Hello. Today we're going to be talking about the Salem witch trials and their timeline and key events and information. So some important information to go over before we go over the timeline of events is Salem was a Puritan and Protestant town, meaning that they had strict beliefs and a strict belief in the devil. And Samuel Parris was Salem's minister, who had many tensions in the community because of his salary and ministry style demands, and John Hawthorne was a magistrate of the town, who presided over many of these trials, including many of the examinations. Both of these men had power in the community and a heavy say in the trials, and affected many of the views of the community because of it. So the Salem witch trial timeline begins in January of 1692, when multiple young village girls in Salem began experiencing fits, which were attributed to witchcraft by doctors. Among these girls were Betty Parris, who was 9 years old and the daughter of Samuel Parris, and Abigail Williams, who was 11 years old and the niece of Parris. So, these girls began having fits in the minister's house and later tended to become the main accusers throughout the trials. So, by February of 1692, 3 women were accused of causing their young girls fits, and warrants were sent out for their arrest. These women were Tituba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne. Once the women were in custody, they were tortured using many means, so they would confess to being witches. This also happened to almost every other accused person throughout these trials after them, and there were many. So Tituba was the first of the accused to give a forced confession. In March of 1692, she confessed to bewitching the young girls, and also implicated the other 2 women in her crime, leaving them all subject to being executed, except Tituba, who was later released. So this event truly started the larger witch hunt in Salem. By June of 1692, the special courts were finally established in Salem, and these courts allowed for spectral evidence, which made testimony of dreams and visions lawful in court, meaning that the young woman who had been saying all of this and accusing these women legally had evidence, and this made defense for the accused nearly impossible. So on June 10th, Bridget Bishop became the first person to die in the trials when she was hanged after being found guilty of being a witch. Later on, there were 3 separate places or times where people were executed by hanging. This one was on July 19th, where Rebecca Nurse, Sarah Good, Elizabeth Howe, Susanna Martin, and Sarah Wilds were all executed. Another second was on August 19th, where Reverend George Burroughs, George Jacobs Sr., Martha Carrier, John Proctor, and John Willard were all executed by hanging. And the third and final large execution happened on September 22nd, where Martha Corey, Mary Parker, Alice Parker, Anne Pruditor, Wilmot Red, Margaret Scott, Samuel Wardwell Sr. were all hanged. By October of 1692, public opinion on the trials finally started to shift and change after more prominent figures started being accused, one of whom was the governor's wife. By May 1693, Governor William Phipps dissolved the courts and pardoned all the remaining prisoners, ending the Salem witch trials. So, in total, in just over a year, over 200 men and women were accused of witchcraft in Salem. 19 of these accused people were executed. There were also many people who died in prison, around 9, I believe, and some who died during the questioning. One of these people who died during the questioning was Giles Corey, who was famously pressed to death under stones during questioning because he refused to enter a plea when he was questioned. Almost anyone who got accused would be imprisoned and tortured so they would confess, and while many got released, many also did not make it out alive. So, what caused a community like this to turn on each other and accuse and torture and kill each other over mere accusations and just speculations of witchcraft? Well, that's what we're going to discuss in class. I'll see you all then.